Paris or in the French airspace, because the boarding point and the final destination happens to be India, the jurisdiction will lie with the Indian courts. Or take it vice versa. Somebody books a flight from Paris to Delhi and that again Delhi to Paris. Now, assuming something happens in Delhi while the aircraft was in Delhi, just assume, but obviously the person had not left the aircraft. That is the main pitching point here. So you were in the aircraft and something happens in Delhi while the aircraft was being parked. Now, your ticket is from Paris to Delhi and Delhi to Paris back. So though something happened in Delhi while you were in Delhi, but the courts in Delhi will have no jurisdiction, because the final boarding point and the final alignment point is in Paris. Therefore, it is the courts of Paris which will have the jurisdiction. So it is such intricacies of law which normal legal practitioners or which judicial officers in post are not aware of, and which will create a problem for India not only from a legal perspective but also from a diplomatic perspective. Now, this law which I'm talking to you is a Montreal Convention law. This law has been incorporated into India because India has committed and India has ratified and signed the treaty. Now, if the courts of India are not accepting or not honoring that law, it also brings bad name for the country. Now, it is quite possible you may approach a district court in Delhi and say, "Sir, I was in Delhi airport and my baggage was lost, or something happened. Therefore, please issue notice against Air France." 99.9% that district courts will issue notice against Air France. So legally speaking, the district court in Delhi has no jurisdiction. Now the point here is this: even to raise this objection in the Delhi district court, Air France has to send a lawyer, has to invest in India, has to pay the charge for a lawyer. So by doing all these things, the ease of business is going away. So in the long run, the airlines or the business in aviation will be affected by these things. Therefore, it's very important that in the coming years, and we will require various aviation laws. Another example of which Professor Patrick Monnier is also very well much aware is the issue of export from India of aircraft, in which I specialize along with my senior colleague, Miswas. Now, India has ratified a convention known as Cape Town Convention. Now, Cape Town Convention is the law which governs the asset financing of aircraft and also space objects and planes also. But it has three protocols. One of them is aircraft protocol. Once India has ratified that protocol, that Cape Town Convention, and I can tell you why, because I worked in this matter extensively as an student. The law says once IDERA has been filed, so IDERA happens to be a document which stands for Irrevocable Deregistration and Export Request Authorization. Once an IDERA has been filed by the lessee or the lessor, lessee is the airline in most cases, lessor is the plane's actual owner or interest owner, has been filed by the lessee or the lessor with the DGCA of India, and say after 2 years or say after 3 months or 6 months, there happens to be a default. The lessee commits a default. It is not discharging its obligations which it is required to discharge under the lease agreement. In that case, the moment IDERA is invoked by the IDERA holder or the lessor, the DGCA has no other option. The law says that the DGCA has no other option but to deregister the aircraft within 5 days from the date on which the IDERA was filed, was invoked. That is what the law says. Practically, if you go and file IDERA, DGCA, it will not take less than 15 days. The law of India itself says 5 days. The Cape Town Convention says 5 days, and India has incorporated that part into its domestic laws also. It says 5 days. But tomorrow you go and invoke this law, you find that it will take at least 15 days. Now, for a lessor, if the aircraft cannot be repossessed, if the aircraft cannot be repossessed and put into service again, because you see, if the aircraft is on land, is on ground, is grounded, it is simply sucking your blood. You have to pay for its parking charges, you have to pay for its employees, you have to ensure that it is not cannibalized, and it's earning you nothing. And also the value is depreciating. Now, as a lessor, as an investor in this country, I would always want that this, if the lessee defaults, the law should be such that I can repossess my aircraft as soon as possible. So it is in repossessing an aircraft, the lessor will end up paying at least 1 crore for lawyer and the entire legal team. So all these are what? These are costs which a business will take into consideration. So, and why it is happening? It is happening because the lawyers at large, the regulators at large, and judiciary at large, with all due respect, is not very well aware of the legal principles and the policy issues in aviation sector. I'll give you another example. It might become more technical to you, but I'll try to explain that to you just to show how things work in practice, because we're talking about practice, not about the academic part. Under India's Foreign Exchange Management Act, you know FEMA? FEMA law. It's the law which maintains foreign exchange in India. Under that act, we have a foreign exchange management rules also we have. So before any entity or anything can be exported out of India, the exporter is required to do a document known as GR waiver. GR waiver stands for Guaranteed Remittance Waiver. The logic here is, if something is being exported out of India, certain amount of foreign currency has to remit back to India. So if you say, I'm sending this piece of equipment from India to US, the business says, the logic says, the law says, some amount of money in the US dollar has to come back to India. So either you show me that receipt, you send that money to India, or you procure a GR waiver. So GR waiver is given to you by an AD bank. So under FEMA regulations, we have various types of banks. So banks in banking law known as ADs. AD is authorized dealer. So we have AD1 bank, AD2 bank, AD3 bank, depending on the business you do. Now a lessor which has no place of business in India, a lessor which is not Indian, why will it have a banking relationship with an Indian bank? Right? But the law required him to seek a GR waiver. I have done cases where the lessor says, I have repossessed the aircraft. The DGCA has given me the permission to take back the aircraft from India. But the customs department is saying to me, you have to bring a GR waiver, because the FEMA law says you cannot export anything from India unless you give me a GR waiver. Now that unfortunate fellow is not Indian, having no Indian presence, having no Indian business. He has to run from post to pillar, from the customs department to finance ministry to RBI to AD bank, seeking a GR waiver. And they say, you have no banking history in India, you have no banking relation in India, therefore we cannot give you a GR waiver form. Now because there is no GR waiver, they used to allow the import. But that import is an improper import under Customs Act. So your import becomes your lawful import. The lawful import of your own property, which you have repossessed legally, has become an improper import under Customs Act. Why? Because of the problems in the policy of the foreign exchange. After a big round of litigation in SISTAT, in which I was the amicus curiae, India fortunately changed its law in 2019 December. So now the law is, if you are an aircraft lessor and you are repossessing your aircraft from India, and if you have the NOC to export from DGCA, you are exempted from filing the GR waiver. So my point here is this: it is these things which the public at large, or the regulators at large, the lawyers at large, judiciary with all respect at large, is not aware of. And that is why when the business is going to increase. That is why when the amount and the frequency of transactions is going to increase in India, aircraft, in normal circumstances, when we only have 650 aircraft in India, we are seeing 5 to 10 repositions every year. Imagine if we have 6,000 aircraft, from 5 to 10 it goes to 50, 60 per year. In 50, 60 aircraft, if even 20% end up in port, it's a huge burden on the ports also. Because once a matter goes to port, we all know it will take at least a year, not less than that. For that 1 year, the aircraft is parked in India. The lessor is spending nothing from India. The lessee is not paying anything and he has to pay the aircraft parking charges. He has to pay his legal fee. He has to pay his CS fee. So that is all what has to be. My entire point here is this, that with these easy transactions, there will be a need for dedicated, educated, and I'm saying acquainted lawyers who are well trained deal with the issues of aircraft financing or aviation law in general. That is one aspect. Another aspect which we are going to see in the coming years is the rise of intermodal transport. Can someone tell me what is meant by intermodal transport? Or multimodal transport, as we also call it. So, for example, today you book a ticket, say from Paris to Delhi, Calcutta. Now from Paris to Delhi, you fly on what? You fly on Air France or KLM. And from Delhi to Calcutta, you fly an Indigo, or you fly a SpiceJet, or Air India for that matter. Now, the ticket is issued by Air France, not only up to Delhi, but up to Calcutta. So the contracting carrier is Air France for the entire journey, but the actual carrier from Delhi to Calcutta is Indigo, SpiceJet, or India. So if something happens between the leg from Delhi to Calcutta, the right to sue will accrue against Air France also and against Indigo or the local Indian carrier also. That is a single modal transport system. Now we might see in the coming future that the booking of flight ticket from say US, from New York to Lucknow. So you land from New York to Delhi. From Delhi you have a bullet train or a high-speed train which has a contract with the airline, and that train takes you from Delhi airport to your station Lucknow. Right? The ticket, the contracting carrier is one, your American airline or the US carrier. The performing carrier for the belt between US and India is the airline, and the belt within India is a train operator. Now the principles of aviation law would be applicable on your first leg of flight, whereas the principles of train law or the principles of domestic transport law would be applicable on your leg in Delhi to Lucknow. But the contract per se has been made under the Montreal Convention, which is the aviation law of the country. Now, this will create a very complex situation. And it is, now imagine if this thing going into litigation. So unless we have a very trained system of regulators, very trained legal practitioners, and very trained judiciary, the system would not and after receiving it is you and me, the consumer at large. So that being said, I would advise all of you, whoever are interested in aviation law, choose the area of law where you want to specialize. If somebody wants to practice in the area of financing of aircraft, in which I practice, make sure that your banking law is strong. Make sure your contract law is strong. And make sure that you are well versed with the principles of basic interpretation. Because the rules will always be the same. Similarly, if somebody is interested, say, in aviation litigation or aviation liability law, make sure you are well versed with the consumer law of the country. So that is something I can advise you is that if you they want to practice in this field, opportunities are numerous. Obviously, the sector as of now is going through a very bad shape due to COVID and all that repercussions. But in the coming 5 years, 3 years, 4 years, we are hoping that it will bounce back. Once it bounces back, we have a very vibrant economy, a very vibrant infrastructure, a very vibrant country. And to serve that, we require a very competitive aviation market. And with this competitive market, you have complex legal problems. And to solve those complex legal problems, we require well-trained lawyers. So that is all I can tell you all, and I can say. And any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. And this, my London colleague, Ms. Viswas, to take it forward. So it's appointed on you. Ms. Udisha, it's, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Yeah, let me introduce ma'am first. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, good evening to you all.
Okay, so Ms. Jackie Viswas headed global legal teams at Allianz Bajaj Insurance, HCL Technologies, Oracle, IBM, GE, Honeywell Technology Solutions, Mindtree, and ITC Infotech. Ms. Viswas brings nearly 24 years of experience in complex compliance matters, corporate investigations, technology and aerospace, commercial and defense practice. She has also led more than 2,500 international complex commercial negotiations, generating business of several billions of dollars in revenue. Her skills are understanding business ecosystems, international regulatory requirements, and offering solutions are well recognized. She has been offering recognized as the best privacy counsel by Indian National Bar Association. She has won several other awards. She has co-authored a book, each on law of patents and law of insurance. She is also a member of the BICCI National Aviation Council and holds a LLM in aviation law from the University of Toulouse, located in the French aviation town of Toulouse. She is one of the few Indian women lawyers formally trained in drone laws, IoT, and allied matters. Welcome, ma'am. We're looking forward to hearing a lot from you.
Thank you for that introduction, and I'm very pleased to be with you all. I would talk a bit about the opportunities of blending technology and aviation, and I would highlight the opportunities in the areas of drone, cybersecurity, and aviation when all the three areas blend. So, as you would have read, there was a recent attack in Jammu using a drone, and it had destroyed a military area. Now, one of the challenges that the aviation industry is facing is the various usages of drones, which can get into wrong hands. While the drones in good hands are great, the drones in wrong hands can be really bad. So, one of the legal opportunities that I see is in the drone space, and there is going to be a lot of industrial use of drones. And you would have probably read that the Indian government is now planning to do vaccine delivery through drones. So I see a lot of opportunities of employers to assist in technology industries where which are producers of drones or which run drone operations. So that is one area. The other area that I see, and if one lawyer is like, technologically sound, you can get into the area of cybersecurity and Internet of Things when they impact the aviation industry. And an example I would give you is all the aircrafts and all the drones and all unmanned aerial vehicles use a lot of software, and those softwares are very typically vulnerable to cyberjacking. Now, one area which will evolve as we grow is, cybersecurity threats which can get into civil aviation as well as in drone sector. So that is, a segment which is very, very technical, which is very interesting, and it is going to make a lot of highlights in future. So I would, probably end by saying that these are two additional sectors which I see as coming up. And in order to get into those sectors, you on in the world today, right? Whether it is geopolitics, whether it is technology, whether it is contracts, or whether it is regulatory, because everything blends together. In aviation, the beauty of aviation law is that everything blends together. As Tamjid has already said, consumer law could be a part, banking law could be a part, so is technology law. So all of these things blend beautifully in aviation. In fact, my interest in aviation law was aroused because of this blending of different areas of law which came together. So with that, I would probably leave a few moments if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Audience are requested. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be having the Q&A session at the end. So maybe Patrick sir can continue.
Okay, sure.
Vidisha, please.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. I'd like to introduce Sir Patrick Olivier is one of the few aircraft finance lawyers having obtained the benefits of both the worlds. While he is a long-standing academic, he has also vast practical expertise in realizing international aviation finance and lease transactions. The combination of extensive scholarly legal knowledge and its direct application in practice makes him a well-rounded aircraft finance lawyer. Olivier is one of the founder members of Replo Aviation and based in Amsterdam. He advises major manufacturers, banks, lessors, and airlines in relation to international financing and leasing of aircraft, helicopters, and engines. He lectures at the LLM in Air and Space program of the University of Mississippi School of Law. As a guest lecturer, he addresses the conflict of laws rules covering aircraft finance transactions at Groningen University, the Netherlands. For many years, he instructed the students in international aircraft financing law at the International Institute of Air and Space Law, Leiden University. At Utrecht University and the University Aruba, he taught corporate and commercial law. Sir attended the diplomatic conference for the realization of the Convention on International Air Trust in Mobile Equipment and the Aircraft Equipment Protocol. He was the expert legal counsel of the governments of Aruba, the former Netherlands Antilles, and the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs concerning the adoption by the King of Netherlands of the Cape Town Convention on 1st September 2010. He was an external legal advisor of the government of the Netherlands concerning the innovative implementation of the deregistration of aircraft provisions of the Cape Town Convention in the Netherlands. Consequently, the regulation covering the registration of civil aircraft in the Netherlands has been amended on 1st April 2020. It provides for a procedure which is not yet enacted in any other jurisdiction at the global level. He is also an author of numerous articles being published in all leading air law journals. With this, I'd like to ask Sir to please continue with the lecture. So your mic is not on.
1 second, you can hear me now, right?
Yes, sir, you are.
Well, thank you very much for your kind introduction, and also very much appreciate the invitation to speak again for your wonderful organization. I really admire what you are doing, really do. Well, something first about me indeed. Mr. Tanjit already mentioned it, that it is very important that when you start, actually you should start today. Networking is really important. That is how Tanjit and I, Mr. Tanjit and I, got to know each other. For example, when he started, before he started to study in the Netherlands at Leiden University, we were already in touch. Is it true or not? And then via Tamjid, I got to know Miss Wieswald. And the three of us are working now. And that is how it went. You need to know people, regardless what kind of law you're going to do in the future. But certainly, I think in aviation circles, because it is a small world, it is a closed shop in the sense, yeah, because of the specializations and expertise, uh, you need to know, or the people need to know you. And if they don't know you, yeah, they won't ask you. So they need to get to know you. And that is how the three of us got to know each other. And that's a very simple example. So therefore, I always suggest my students of the first lecture, get started networking today as much as you can. And today, yeah, online, of course, because you cannot attend a lot of conferences. That is impossible, but also on LinkedIn, any kind of social network, and then particularly aviation related. Let people get to know who you are and never hesitate to ask questions, because that will, yeah, put you in the frame of somebody's thinking, like me, maybe, or the other speakers today. If you have a question, and it doesn't matter what kind of question, don't be hesitant that you ask a question which is not, yeah, that grand in your own opinion. For the other people, it may be interesting. And if it is indeed such an interesting question, the people that sit there, like the other speakers tonight today, we may think, hey, who is this lady? Who is this guy? This is very interesting. My mind sharpens, I want to know more about it, and so on and so on. So start networking today, right? If you didn't do it already. This is very important. And to be shy, that is not something good in the legal profession. Being shy, you can be elsewhere, but not as a lawyer. I hope the other speakers of today, Ms. Bishart and Mr. Tamjid will agree with me. Being very shy, that is not, you got to look for another job. Sorry. Now, that is one thing. Another thing is specialization, like what was also mentioned already, and I cannot agree more. Specialization, even like it has been said already, in the law of aviation, you need to specialize. It is even so much specialized, and expertise is important, that, for example, international conferences before COVID started, we still had conferences worldwide, but for example, aviation-related conferences are hardly general anymore. And the reason is because the lawyers attending these conferences, they have nothing to say to each other except talking about their specialized area of law. For example, in my case, aircraft financing. The meetings are purely, entirely focusing on aircraft financing, because when you specialize so much, you have not much time for, let's say, yeah, passenger rights or liability, crashes, etc., etc. So indeed, I do agree with other speakers. Do get specialized and get your knowledge in that area. Build it up. You cannot be a general aviation, any lawyer in most cases. But certainly, maybe not in India, because as Tamjid has been saying, Mr. Tamjid, that there's so much to be done in the future. There's so much to be done. Something about drones, indeed. Ms. Wieswas, I couldn't agree with her more. It is so important. What I would like to add is just, and that also concerns space space objects, space equipment, getting into that area of law, that these objects, the large ones, drones, the large commercial drones, in the future, without any doubt, need to get financed or leased. The commercial drones, right? They will cost a lot of money. They won't be cheap. They will be more expensive than a car. Now, cars are already financed and leased. I'm sure in India too. I mean, and that will be for drones as well. But until today, for example, drones or space equipment, the legal finance part, lease part, because you need people to lease your drones. If you manufacture them, you need to lease the expensive ones or to finance them. That area of law is underdeveloped still. So a lot to be done for your generation. Look into financing, leasing expensive commercial drones and space equipment. Today, hardly ever that is discussed at conferences, for example. It isn't. So that's another tip. Now, another thing, something about me. I have a very kind introduction. And people ask me sometimes, how did you ever get into the area of law in which you practice? Because I'm a practicing lawyer and being an academic. How did you ever end up there? It is not what, like I myself, that's why I bring it forward. When I was your age, studying still student, I didn't think about becoming an aircraft finance lawyer, specialized in leasing transactions, that kind of stuff. No, and why not? Because they didn't teach us. They did not teach us at all. You know, it was not there yet. But now it is there. And why did I choose this? Well, when I came back from the United States, where I lived 6 years in California, and worked there and did a master's degree, again, not in space or aviation, let alone aircraft finance or lease. It was not there yet, so at that time. But I came back in the 90s, so 2 decades ago. And then I started working for a university, which was mentioned in the Netherlands. And what I was lecturing there was corporate law and commercial law, right? And then became also in the Netherlands again, because I had gone to US, came back practicing. But at one point in time, I was thinking the whole world, and certainly in the Netherlands, everybody in practice is busy with corporate law, company law, commercial law, banking law, this. And I thought, well, everybody is doing it. Why on earth do I need to do it myself as well? I've been doing it enough. And so I started to look for a new area of law which was underdeveloped. And that's how I decided. I want to go aviation and then commercial, because yeah, that is what I was trained to do. I ended up doing aircraft financing and leasing transactions. And that is how I specialized myself at the University Utrecht. That's where I lectured first. It's one of the established old universities in my country. And then I moved as well, in addition to working for Utrecht, to Leiden University, where I did lecture for about 13 years. And then my topic was aircraft financing and leasing, because I specialized in that area of the law. And it was successful because it was a new area of the law. Like I say, drones financing for technical equipment or whatever, space objects, etc. But that is how I entered the legal discipline of aircraft financing. It is a niche, let me say, a niche area of the law. It is not as big as corporate. It is not as big as, let's say, criminal law, contract law. It isn't, but because it is more selective. But it is most fascinating. And to talk a bit about that, in addition to what has already been mentioned, I think, yeah, what is so interesting about that area, international aviation financing and leasing law, it already says it. Almost, yeah, by definition, transactions are to a very, very large extent international. And I think that is making it fascinating, not just a local area of law. Across the boundaries, across the international, at the global level. Even if, for example, the people that did take the classes about aircraft financing, I said it, for example, if an aircraft would never leave India again, most likely still it has, that arises an issue, a problem in regard to that certain aircraft. Well, most likely it will be international. Because maybe the parties, the financier, therefore whoever, whichever stakeholder, there are international parties. So that already makes it international. You see, and so the international aspect I think is fascinating. Another thing that I like about that area of the law is, it has been mentioned, it is to a large extent when the sky is blue, or I should say when the sky is the limit, when airlines and other operators start purchasing or they want to acquire aircraft, they need money, right? So they need to get finance or they have to have their aircraft leased. But what I want to add is that this is having to do with transactional work. A lot of contracts, but the contracts are extremely important, but that gives a lot of, yeah, a lot of work. It is not underpaid, I can assure you. In general, the legal fees are substantial, depending on the country in which you work, but it is not bad. It is not bad. That is all nice, but it is transactional. So a lot of contract work, as I say, or other documentation, mortgages, etc. Documentation, transaction. Okay, but what happens all the time is that aviation is living in economic, how can I say, high tides and low tides. Almost every 8 to 10 years, something will happen that the industry goes up or it goes down again. Like recently, COVID. And what we are doing in aircraft financing leasing law industry practice is, first, we do transactions, as I just mentioned, but when the tide turns, like in the COVID days today, in this kind of bad situation or other mishaps in history, we turn the table and then we start advising our clients, for example, how to get, like already addressed by Mr. Tamjid, how to get back your airplanes. How do you take care of your clients in insolvencies? Like taking back your aircraft, you won't wait until too late, until there is already an insolvency, for example. You'll try as soon as possible and on time, but not too early and not too late. Get your work with your clients to get the aircraft back, repossess, and then do all the advisory work in that regard, and if necessary litigate or come up with scenarios that will help your client. What I mean in essence is that when sky is the limit and everybody wants to have new airplanes, wants to have new aircraft engines, which are also extremely expensive, then you do the transactions. And on the other hand, the bad weather arrives, then you can do the repo work, repossessions, insolvency related, deregistrations, and so on and so on. So what I'm trying to say, that in general, the industry will, the international aviation finance and these practice will probably always exist, very, very most likely. Because there is always work, which is not seasonal. You understand? And that is important. There have been quite a couple, some exceptions. For example, the Cape Town Convention was already mentioned, and I was in Cape Town when that treaty was realized. There was a diplomatic conference, and that diplomatic conference was in November 2001. And you will remember, young as you are, you will know that September 11, 2001, so just before the Cape Town Convention diplomatic conference, that New York, for example, was attacked, Washington, etc. And we were in Cape Town talking about those calamities, the industry at the table. That's why I bring up this anecdote. That there was a lawyer from Boeing, the Boeing company, the aircraft manufacturer. He worked for Boeing, and another gentleman from the largest aircraft engine manufacturer and lessor was sitting there also. And we were talking about this disaster, and the guy from Boeing said, "We will not survive. Our industry will go down. It's not the end. We all go bankrupt." You may remember the disasters at that time. And everybody was thinking, yeah, probably, well, bad. My point is, it will bounce back. It will bounce back. The aviation industry at large will always come back. And then on top of it, the aircraft finance lease industry too. It will, as I've said, because first, the good weather, transactions. Secondly, when it is bad, calamities, you do other work. All right, now about jobs. Jobs, yes, people ask me jobs. Also, they ask me about like internships, doing research, that kind of thing. Well, you see, first of all, again, start networking, crucial. People need to know you. But then, yeah, you see, because this is a world which is not like corporate law or criminal law, huge, it is a niche area of law. It is not that there are thousands and thousands of worldwide positions available, right? You will agree. So, nevertheless, there are positions, and that again, start networking, get your foot in the door. But today, because of COVID, yeah, everybody knows in the whole world, regardless of what legal or other profession you're in, it is often not as grand as before, but it will come back. It will come back. So, yeah, get your foot in the door. There is work. And if I think, I don't know whether the other speakers are agreeing that it, but comparatively, I think that, yeah, comparatively, I don't want to say easy, but there are more doors to open worldwide in the aircraft finance lease sector than possibly other sectors of aviation or space, because it is not seasonal. That is my feeling. A lot of my old students have found very nice jobs, good jobs. I've seen many, so I would not discourage you to go that way. Up to you. One more thing. There are three real academic universities worldwide that offer an LLM and air and space law degree. That is Leiden, that is McGill in Canada and Montreal, and that is the one I teach in 7 years when I left Leiden. That is the one in Mississippi. And nothing negative about the other, our friends that are teaching at other universities, the other two. But what I would like to point out is, and I'm not sure whether those other universities do that today, is that Mississippi is offering diplomas for students like you, but you need a bachelor at least, that you can choose certain areas of law and get a diploma for that area of law, or you can do the full course, LLM, but maybe, and online. I already teach there now for the 8th year online, to a large extent from Amsterdam. I do go to Mississippi once in a while, but I do not want to live in America, the United States anymore. It is my choice. I told you I lived there for 6 years, and it is good, and it has bad things, but I prefer not to. So online already it offers, for example, diplomas for students who are interested in this area of law or that area of law. And I'm very happy to say that I do their aircraft financing and leasing law myself. Every Monday and Wednesday I lecture the whole full semester, and as far as that's concerned, it is the only LLM provider in the entire world doing it so extensively like Mississippi has to offer. In the event that you know other people who are not lawyers, friends, family, but you know they are also very keen in aviation matters and they like to know a bit more about aviation. Also, non-lawyers can, provided they have a bachelor's degree, doesn't matter, economics or I don't know, they also can do a certain program and get a diploma. And that is what I wanted you to know. And for jobs, I think, like this country already said in India, but also internationally. Oh yeah, let me not forget that. For example, the other speakers know, like in Asia, like Singapore is a center, Hong Kong for aircraft finance and lease, for example, they play a role. But certainly the Middle East are just finalized. We finalized a transaction including aircraft for Dubai Aerospace Enterprise DAE in Dubai, a large aircraft lessor, a large conglomerate who owns a variety of aviation related industries. And I represented them, my firm represented them. They have lawyers, they obtain lawyers worldwide, you understand? Not only in Dubai. And I know also, and the other speakers know that too, but for example, in the Middle East or wherever in London, there are employed lawyers from India also, right? You will have to do, of course, exams, bar exams, that kind of stuff. But also, that's my point, from other countries, in New York, for example, or in London, law firms doing aviation, doing aircraft finance, they do not solely employ English lawyers or New York ones. And the good thing about you, that's my point as well, is that you have a common law background related to the British English law. You have a common law background, so you have an advantage over students who come from civil law countries like the Netherlands, continental Europe, or the old colonial situation countries that at one time, for example, were a colony of the Netherlands, like Indonesia or like Suriname, to give a few examples. They have civil law, no preferred. Preferred is, to an extent, is that you have common law background. That is at the international level. I think that is what I wanted to tell you. And any questions you have, I will, whoever, other speakers or students. Okay, thank you. Who is talking to me? Oh, nobody.
So that was some English.
Any questions? Does anybody have a question for me, or how are we going to do it?
Yes, sir, our audience has several questions. First one, and so however you see, sorry, sir.
I cannot.
So what are the challenges the law students face if they pursue aviation law in India, specifically?
I think I lost you. If you ask me a question, I lost you. That's just my technical thing, maybe. Can you, Tanji, if there's a question for me, can you answer?
Sure. I mean, the challenges you face, they're same which you face while doing the law. I would say this much only. Nothing much changes. So I mean, there is no different challenge which you face while doing aviation law. It's same what you face while doing law. So yeah, I mean, aviation law should be your practice area, but as I always say, there has to be some basic foundation from behind. It can be banking, it can be insurance, it can be litigation, anything can be there. But obviously, you cannot just do aviation law. You cannot be a complete aviation lawyer without doing the law. So if you read today's newspaper, you have to also read yesterday's newspaper, as simple as that. So not just be an aviation lawyer, you have to be a lawyer also. That's all I can say.
Yes, and may I add, I give you one example. Possibly already told the students who took those lectures a week ago that at one point in time, and it must be right now, already it must be 15 years ago, that I attended one of the bar associations. I told you I lived in California, USA. Still am, and if I can, attending the meetings of the American Bar Association, right? A meeting in Atlanta, and there I met an English lawyer, solicitor, and he was, let's say, my generation, and we introduced ourselves because we both presented in a panel. We were presenters, and I said, "Hi, who are you?" He said, "Who are you?" and so on and so on. And then he said, "Oh, really?" What I told him what I did, and he said, "Oh, really? Well, I can tell you, I never spent one day in law school. However, I'm going to retire very early, and then I'm going to study law, and I'm going to study history as well." I said, "Well, isn't that lovely?" But I was thinking, isn't that a bit late? And in the sense, you need to be a lawyer. That's what Mr. Tanjeet is saying, because otherwise you'll make huge mistakes. And his law firm today is probably the largest in regard to aircraft financing, aviation law. That is a combination of a firm in New York and a firm in London, and they merged. He was at that time the head of the section of aircraft financing and leasing law. But my point is that his firm and other large law firms in London, for example, the lawyers made huge mistakes in court cases. Huge mistakes. And that is why the slogan exists. Yeah, it is It is a lawyer's paradise, which is equivalent to the client's depression, because the clients pay and the lawyers make the clients lose. Yeah, and that is not what you really want. So indeed, you need to be a lawyer first. You need to study law. You need to, again, concentrate on areas which you like, not only for the money, which you like, which you really want to do. See? And then I'm sure you will be successful. Otherwise, like one more example, a huge court case, and the lawyer involved advising his clients for a huge transaction, money-wise, $45 million, wrong advice, a wrong court ruling, and then in that case, and two cases before, which were referred by the last court ruling, referring back to previous cases. That's what you have in common law, India too. The stare decisis, whatever you call it, Latin, the term, that one court, the first court, a while ago, second court, and the last court are saying about this certain barrister, the gentleman is until today a barrister, that these courts will say, yes, Mr. X was not arguing his case seriously. If that is repeated a couple of times, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't look good on your CV, does it? But still he has got clients. In any event, so that is what I wanted to add to what Mr. Sanjeev was saying.
Thank you, sir. The answer was very satisfactory. So we have this next question from the audience for Sanjeev sir. So this is that how can one be assured that the person is well prepared for the field? Like the basic question is how can we prepare for the aviation laws right from the start?
The question is,
Yes, sir. So how can one be assured that he or she is prepared for the field, and like what can be done to prepare right from the beginning?
I would just say one thing: read the law very well, because at the end of the day, you're a lawyer. You have advice for the legal aspect. So know your law very well. Proper research. Be aware of the developments in the field. That's all I can say. And also, I have to take your leave because I have another appointment in the next 10 minutes.
Yes, sir, no
So,
problem.
yeah, that's what I can say. Be prepared for the law and read the law properly. That's all I can say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was great learning from you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye-bye, see you, talk to you later. Thanks.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, sir.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, sir, we had a question. So, what are the career opportunities available for a law student in India and abroad, and challenges associated with it?
Well, see, Ms. Biswas knows it, and Mr. Tamji too, that the law in general is highly competitive, isn't it? I don't think any student in India will disagree that it is already extremely competitive per se. So how, yeah, that is, do your best and really, really try to do as good as you can. It is not that only the top 1 and 2 students will be able to get, for example, students that are interested in aviation law in general, or my area in particular, that only they will get a job or not. Maybe they won't find a job. And number 3 and 4 or number 15, if you get my drift, they do find a job. And that's why networking is so important. But also, I think it is extremely important in all ways that you find an area that you really like, that is good to you, that you know, not doing something against your wish. And abroad, it is the same. The problem is, of course, that traveling international and a long distance, attending conferences, that will be difficult for law students, for most law students, right? If you've got a bag of money, it is easier. But then you start working as a junior somewhere, get a foot in the door, and join as much as you can those conferences, because then your law firm will pay, I hope, for you. You don't pay yourself. But again, the networking, you know, we need to travel normally and show ourselves. And that will be in the future as well. So how do you get international? Yeah, you have to advertise yourself. If possible, write a paper or make your paper, turn it into an article, right? Turn it into an article, work with your professors, and make it, tune it, and publish it so people will see who you are. They will again say, hey, this is one more thing I would like to say in this respect. I told you there are three LLMs, air and space law. There are other LLMs, but air and space law, three, okay? Right? But if you are interested in a certain area, you decide to do an LLM in air and space law, but be careful if you already know which area it is that you are going to be practicing in later, or you like to, that there is somebody that can assist you as a professor with what you want to achieve, like indeed writing a paper or a thesis, but then you can create an article, publish it in a law review, and get classes in your area of law, which you think, hey, this will help me, that there is at least a professor teaching your specific area of law that you want to do later, because if there isn't, yeah, how can you learn about that certain area of law, whether it is space or aviation? Again, specialization. So altogether, be very busy. Let people know that you exist in all possible ways. And the more they get your face, to know you, see you, and know about your reputation and your, publishing, if possible, the more you achieve, they'll come to you. I'll give you one example. Me, I'm, as you know, a couple of years older than you are, but you know, they approached me last week out of the blue in regards to an aviation law matter, which is totally new to me. But what does it regard? It regards bird strikes, you know, birds, airports, the danger in the engine, right? You know, those cases also happening in India, worldwide. A bird is flying a goose into a huge aircraft engine, and then you get a situation like the famous one in New York years ago, where the pilot was able to land in the Hudson River because of that, and everybody was saved, not one person, both seriously injured and no casualties, not anybody dead at least. That guy was appointed, by the way, I think a month ago by the new president in the US as an ICAO. He represents the United States International Civil Aviation Organization in Montreal. But my point is, you need to make a name. And what my case last week, bird strike. But it is not the bird strike, it is the rules around refusing an organization, a company to start, a company to be exact, a winery, wine, right? Where they make wine, grapes that in the area of the airport, that they don't give the Department of Civil Aviation of that country is refusing to give that to, it was refusing to give that organization a permit. Now the question arises, is that under the international laws? Is that correct? Do they have that power? Can they refuse? Do they have, etc., etc., etc. So for me, that is a new thing indeed. That is a new thing. And if they want an expert report, well, I'll be happy because for me it's new. But for you, I would suggest you can do this later. Try to focus now on one area of, if you are interested in aviation, law, is it international, get international, organize, try to get people to know internationally. That will help. And do your exams. If you want to practice in England, London, do your exams there. And if you are having a license in London, you can also work. That's it. You can also then work in Dubai or Singapore or wherever, New York. You don't have to do necessarily always another bar exam. That helps. And the same goes for New York, by the way. New York and London are the centers right now. I cannot say anything else. They are the centers. So if you take the English bar or the New York bar, that will get you further, because then you don't need, if you go to work in Dubai, for example, you don't need to take the Dubai bar, for example, or Singapore, if you don't want. All right. Okay. Is that it?
So we also have questions from the audience. So there are a lot of questions. So the first one is, briefly describe the principal legislation and regulatory bodies which apply to regulate aviation in your jurisdiction.
I cannot say much about that. Raji, can you say something about this? Your microphone.
Sir, may I just read it out?
Hello?